Hey everyone, this is Steve with Keep 'em Rollin', and just a couple quick channel updates. First and foremost, be sure to watch next week's video as I am going to be out of the war room. I'm going to be someplace fun, and I think you will enjoy the footage. Secondly, as far as the room tour goes, I am almost there. I am around third base now. I am heading for home. I've got a little bit of painting to finish, some dusting and some rearranging, and if my schedule permits, we're looking at a room tour sometime around the first, if not the second week of November. I'm really looking forward to this. I want to share my space with all of you, so hopefully it'll give you ideas of what to do, and maybe you'll respond back and give me ideas of how I can change things. So room tour is coming. Now on to today's video. It's going to be just a quick video about an area of collecting that not a lot of militaria people get into, and that is sports equipment. During World War II, our United States military acquired vast amounts of sports equipment for the rest and recreation centers for our service personnel, both men and women. And this equipment included everything from footballs, baseball equipment, tennis equipment, golf equipment, and the like. Now, the difficult part about collecting this equipment is that a lot of it's unmarked. In other words, not every piece of equipment had a U.S. Army or U.S. Navy stamp on it. A lot of it was just your normal equipment. So when you buy something like that, if it's period, you could argue, yeah, it could have been at an R&R center, but without definitive proof, it could also just be a piece of equipment that was purchased or manufactured and purchased by someone just at that time period. So finding the marked equipment's more difficult. And I've added a few pieces to my collection that I'd like to share with you now. Give you a couple of tips here too. So the first piece is this right here. And it's just a good old standard ball glove. Love the leather on it. It's in great shape. It's starting to dry out a little bit, so I'm going to have to treat it with some leather preservative to make sure it doesn't dry out completely. Now, I did talk to a longtime sports collector who told me that one thing to look for on these gloves is you look at the back strap. And if the back strap is a button back strap, that is an earlier glove. Later, they switched over to a tie-down back strap. So if you see that, that's going to put you in that range of the 30s and 40s. But they did use that up into the 50s in that, so you have to kind of be careful. Another thing you want to look for is you want to look for the gloves kind of not the manufacturer, if you will, but the person who's on the glove. So this one's an Enos Slaughter. It's trademarked. So that's his glove. Not his personal glove, but that's the glove. And sometimes you can tie this in to find out, like, okay, this baseball player was only big in 38 to 40. So that's going to kind of give you a time range of this glove. Or you can look for the individual markings on the glove, and that's why I bought this one, because on the back here, if we look up, here, first we see that they put in this really neat little kind of heart motif here. And then on the back strap, they put their name, Keith Verman, and the date, May 1943. Love it. Now, there's no way, I've looked him up. I have not been able to find information on him as of yet. However, you hopefully will find something to show that he was a soldier. Now, that notwithstanding, the glove could have been something that Keith here had in high school at that time and didn't want anyone else to take. Could Keith have been a younger gentleman at that time and played in maybe a sandlot type of situation, didn't want his glove to be taken by someone else in the sandlot league, if you will? Yeah, it's always a possibility. Or could Keith be a soldier and this glove went with him overseas? Who knows? But it's still dated. It still puts it smack dab into that nice kind of early war period, and I love it. I love anything dated like that. Now, why I also like this is it's a crossover piece 3 different ways. Number 1, World War II. You got that going for it. Number 2, sports, baseball, America's pastime. You got that going for it. I mean, when you think about how big baseball's big now, but think about what baseball was like at this time. It was huge. It was huge. So I just can't imagine what this glove went through. But then third, you also have home front collectibles. If this was an actual kid, this translates into that really kind of cool category of home front children's collectibles. So that's my first glove right there. Now, my second glove is this beauty right here. And once again, it's starting to dry out a little bit, so I've got to get these cleaned up. This one's a Spalding. You can see the Spalding stamp there, and then if we go to the back strap, you can see the button. And then you can also see the button is marked Spalding. Beautiful. It's got a little bit of damage here where some of the trim has come off, but nothing's deteriorating or detracting from the glove. But the cool thing about it is when I looked at this glove, this caught my eye over here, and look at that. It's stamped USN, United States Navy. Isn't that cool? So that's an actual glove that was used by the Navy, most likely at an R&R center. So fantastic piece. This one I think I gave 25 for. It wasn't a huge amount, but just to find that marking on there was so cool. And once again, to think about baseball as a pastime and who wore this glove, who played catch with this, who played games with this. It just, I wish this glove could talk. Now, when I bought this glove, the person I bought it from, they had this as well. And they said that this actually, they came together when they acquired them. This one is not marked USN, but for those of you who may not know, this is a catcher's mask. This is an early catcher's mask. It dates right into that 1930s, early 1940s range, and it's in great shape. The leather padding is excellent. All the straps are present. The leather's all good. The framework, everything about it is just fantastic. And I believe, like I said, I think I paid like 25 and I think 10, something like that for the two pieces, but I could not pass them up. I just wish this had been a catcher's glove. That would have been even better to have with the mask, but still, two really, really cool pieces. So now the final piece, my father found this for me. My dad's a consummate tennis racket collector, tennis collector. He was a tennis coach for years, and it's just an incredible collection of very rare early vintage tennis rackets. We're talking rackets from the 1890s, 1900s and that. And in fact, I did find him a cool collectible. I found him a tennis ball, if you can believe that. World War II period tennis ball. Actually, I found him a can too, but these were, World War II tennis ball that someone wrote on, and I think they were from the 101st Airborne, and they wrote about bringing it back from Germany. And I found it at a military show, and it's like, I've got to buy this for him. I think they wanted like $5 for it. And I remember buying it, and it was like right off that morning. It was down in Louisville at the big show of shows. First thing, I'm walking through, first table, I see the tennis ball. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Pick it up, look it over. I'm like, how much? Guy's like, $5. I'm like, I'll take it. And the guy looks at his buddy and goes, I can't believe that you sold that. We had a bet that that would not be looked at all day, and it's the first thing to sell off the table. So I guess there was some money exchanged for that. But what my dad found me was this item right here. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a racket press. Okay, for those of you who don't play tennis, and in fact, even now, we don't use them because tennis rackets are made of metal. So tennis rackets today are made of metal. They don't warp. The early tennis rackets were made of wood. And what would happen would be when you string the racket, you have that racket head, that big kind of opening, and you'd string that with the strings. But all that tension, it causes the head to warp just because everything wants to pull. So you get that warp. And that's not a good thing for a racket. It's impossible to play tennis with a racket that's warped like that. So what you would do is you would acquire a wooden tennis racket and you would get a press with it or frame. And then after you're done playing tennis, you simply slip the racket head into the frame. You use the wing nuts and you tighten it down all across. And you kind of do that cross tightening until you get it tight and you want it to be nice and straight. And that keeps the head from warping. Then when you're ready to play, you simply loosen up, take it out, and it's not going to instantly warp. It warps over time. Maybe the moisture changes and you get a little bit of warpage, or it dries out, and keeping in here keeps it nice and straight. Okay, so my dad found this for me. He said, I think you're going to like this, and he hands it to me. I'm like, why would I like this? And he says, well, turn it over, dummy. My dad doesn't mince words. So I turned it over. U.S. Navy. That is a World War II U.S. Navy tennis racket press. Now I just have to find a period racket to put in there to kind of finish it off. But isn't that just wild? So this is my limited amount of sports equipment. It's not huge. These pieces, I love having them because if you do displays, it's really cool to be able to put out things that people can relate to. Some of the stuff you put out on a display from World War I or World War II, and people look at it and they're like, well, it's quaint, but we don't have anything like that today. When you put out something like this, boy, let me tell you, kids come right out, wow, it's a baseball glove. Wow, they had those back then. That's a World War II baseball glove. So when you're out looking, you see that big bin of baseball gloves at the antique shop or the flea market, dig in. Start off by looking for the buttons, okay? That's going to eliminate a lot of the gloves. Once you find the buttons, start looking at the glove itself. Is it marked with a U.S. N on it? Is it marked with a date like this one here? Now, I've gone through a lot of bins and found very little, but when you hit that one, man, that is when it becomes so cool. So, this is Steve on Sports Equipment with Keep 'em Rolling, reminding all of you to keep 'em rolling.